Called last night's show Phase 1 of his own sex scandal. Phase 2, he joked, I go on Oprah and sob. But if anyone was curious about what kind of impact the David Letterman saga would have on David Letterman, his guest and fellow comedian Steve Martin offered this observation: it proves that you're a human being, and we weren't really that sure before. Our third story on the countdown: Letterman goes before the court of public opinion, and so far he is winning. Taping his first show since last Thursday's confession, David Letterman greeted with cheers from his studio audience, and after quipping he spent the whole weekend raking hate mail, he quickly put aside fears that his own scandal would prevent him from joking about other people's scandals.
Things are still pretty bad. There's a possibility that I'll be the first talk show host impeached. So, first of all, Bill Clinton said no. Good news for South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford, because he... How about that, Elliot Spitzer? Would you take a look at...
But after the checklist of jokes he can't do anymore came the apology, first to his staff for putting them through the ordeal, then thanking them for their support. And as for his wife, Letterman offered this act of contrition.
Now, the other thing is my wife, Regina, she has been horribly hurt by my behavior. And when something happens like that, if you hurt a person, then it's your responsibility. You try to fix it. And at that point, there's only two things that can happen. Either you're going to make some progress and get it fixed, or you're going to fall short and perhaps not get it fixed. So let me tell you, folks, I got my work cut out for me.
And it turns out the viewers like their Letterman humble and self-deprecating. Last night's Late Show bringing in 5.7 million viewers, only 200,000 fewer than the audience for his original confession. And as for the man who follows Letterman with his own late-night talk show on CBS, he finds himself in a somewhat precarious position. Like that never happened before. The Late Show's Craig Ferguson defending David in his monologue, pointing out that Mr. Letterman is indeed his boss and telling his audience, I guess by now you've all figured out how I got the job.
David Letterman, the king of late-night television, unless you believe the NBC press release, the king of late-night television, got himself into a little bit of a situation which he's dealing with, and he's my boss. And my job is to, take the #1 news story of the day and have a bit of fun with it. The person that you work for, the person you admire and respect, is caught in an embarrassing situation, and your job is to be funny about that whilst trying to keep your own job. So this is my last show. We are now holding late-night talk show hosts to the same moral accountability as we hold politicians or clergymen. I'm out.
Always have a job here. Joining us now, the editor for Newsweek.com, Devin Gordon. Thanks for some of your time tonight, sir.
No, thanks for having me, Keith.
Has Letterman averted disaster by kind of proactively poking fun at himself, sort of taking ownership of this entire topic?
Well, I think poking fun of it was one factor. I think there are really three factors: humor, obviously, candor, and controlling the story. The real masterstroke here was getting out ahead of this thing. Because look, I'm not really sure this was ever going to be a disaster. I mean, as you pointed out, look at the ratings. I think there was a little devil on David Letterman's shoulder the moment it became clear that this was going to come out publicly, that he knew that this was going to be a big ratings moment for him. This guy has been in television a long time, and I think they knew what they were doing.
Yeah, if it's going to happen, at least you get whatever benefits, whoever gets the audience. Some people are getting audience for watching this on other shows. You might as well take advantage of it yourself. But to what degree, they sort of cleared the field for him. The other non-CBS late-night comedians distanced themselves from this. Jay Leno mentioned it on Friday, but that's really been about it. Does that hold for very much longer?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see who's touched this and who hasn't. I mean, Jay Leno took a little bit of a shot at it. I mean, there's always been this back and forth between Leno and Letterman. There's always been been a rivalry there where Leno's been more popular, quote unquote, but Letterman has been the revered one. And then the other guys, and really who we're talking about here is Conan O'Brien and Jon Stewart. Well, these are two guys who openly revere Letterman, and I think that that's part of the reason why they've kept their powder dry so far. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see if Stewart touches it tonight. This is, we're a couple of days removed from it. They don't have a daily show on Friday. We'll see if they get to it tonight. But I think they're probably missed their moment. They're probably going to let it go unless. Well, I was going to say unless there's another turn of the screw, but I think that'd be a bad choice of words under the circumstances.
And if everybody kept the powder dry, we'd never have anything to worry about. Is there something instructional in all this about comedy? A comedian rips a politician for a sex scandal, and the politician always defends, saying, look, there's been an attempt to judge me. Yeah. Somebody's assumed a position of moral superiority. Obviously, that can't be the case for David Letterman now, but people are still laughing at these jokes. Could it turn out ultimately that the jokes are a lot less about laughing at people because you're up and they're down, and just more about jokes being funny to people about other people at certain times?
Of course, this is his job. Letterman is a comedian. He's an entertainer. He doesn't get evaluated on the same moral standards as Ferguson put it, as politicians and clergymen. This is what he does. I don't think that there's any expectation among the audience of David Letterman's fans that this guy was an angel. Anybody who's been watching him for the past 20 years probably knew that this guy probably had some issues and was maybe a difficult guy from time to time. We watch him because he's funny.
To me, the thing that it still amazes me has gotten very little play in this is the thing that CBS has not answered, whether or not it needs to investigate Joe Halderman, the guy who's accused of doing this. I mean, flat out, one of its news producers, and again, the caveat that I once worked with the man, was arrested for taking $2 million, and a way you can interpret that is he took the $2 million, allegedly, for burying a news story.
Well, I think right now Joe Halderman's got a few bigger problems than whether or not CBS investigates him.
Well, not him, but doesn't CBS have an issue? Eventually, they have to say something about that end of it as it relates to their news organization.
Yeah, I think that there are some questions to be raised. I mean, CBS has already come out and said that they're not going to investigate Letterman because they haven't gotten any complaints. But it does beg the question of, well, what about Halderman? And I'm a little biased, but it's difficult for me to trust anything or not have a little suspicion about anybody who's got the name Halderman, even if it's spelled differently.
Well, yes, this is where I'll come to his defense. He suffered that cross for even the days when I knew him. He doesn't have anything to do with that. Plus, he has a decidedly different haircut. Devin Gordon, editor for Newsweek.com. Great, thanks for your perspectives.
Thanks for having me.